Jason Thompson stood in the hospital break room, his blue maintenance uniform still damp from mopping the emergency wing. At 32, he had the build of someone who once played college football before enlisting. Life had taken him down unexpected paths, and now his calloused hands gripped the mop bucket handle as he watched him through the doorway. Alexander Grace sat at the small table by the window, his golden hair catching the evening light as he reviewed patient charts with quiet focus. At 28, Alex was younger than his confident demeanor suggested, a dedicated nurse who treated everyone from chief surgeons to the newest janitor with genuine respect. Jason had been working at Mercy General for 6 months now, taking evening shifts while attending community college during the day. His engineering degree was 2 years away, but the bills wouldn't wait. Every Tuesday and Thursday, their paths crossed during the 7-hour break, and every time, Jason found himself lingering just a moment longer. Tonight was different. The hospital's annual charity gala was next week, and staff members were encouraged to attend. Jason had overheard other nurses teasing Alex about not having a date. They didn't know what Jason had observed: how Alex always brought extra sandwiches for the cleaning staff, how he stayed late to comfort patients without visitors, taking a deep breath that expanded his broad chest. Jason walked into the break room. Alex looked up, his tired eyes brightening with a warm smile that seemed reserved just for him. "Long shift, Jason?" he asked, setting down his pen. "The usual," Jason replied, his deep voice betraying none of the nervousness he felt. "Actually, Alex, I wanted to ask you something." Alex tilted his head, curious. The fluorescent lights caught the subtle golden tones in his hair. "The hospital gala next Friday," Jason began, then paused. He knew what people would think of a janitor asking a nurse to a formal event, but something in Alex's eyes encouraged him to continue. "I was wondering if you'd like to go with me as my date." The silence stretched between them like a held breath. Alex's expression shifted through surprise, then something softer, almost vulnerable. "Jason," he said quietly, "are you sure the gala tickets are $300 each?" Jason nodded, having saved for weeks. "I'm sure, though I should warn you, my dancing skills peaked at my high school prom." Alex laughed, a genuine sound that filled the sterile room with warmth. "Mine too, will be perfectly matched in our mediocrity." "Is that a yes?" "It's absolutely a yes." In that moment, beneath the harsh hospital lights, something beautiful began, a reminder that love doesn't see uniforms or status, but the heart wearing them. If this story touches your heart, please subscribe to Heart Stories for more tales of courage and connection or remind us all that sometimes the greatest treasures come disguised in simple uniforms, waiting for someone brave enough to see beyond the surface. The week passed in a blur. Jason rented a tuxedo, practiced his rusty dance moves in his cramped studio apartment, and tried not to think about how out of place he might feel among the hospital's donors and board members. His apartment in South End was modest but tidy, adorned with engineering textbooks and photographs from his military service, memories of a life put on hold when his family disowned him after coming out. Jason hadn't shared that part of his story with Alex yet. How his parents in rural Pennsylvania had told him not to come home again. How his military buddies had slowly disappeared from his life. How he'd learned to build walls to protect what remained of his heart. Tonight wasn't about the past, though. It was about possibility. He picked Alex up at his apartment in Back Bay, a surprisingly simple building that contradicted what Jason had expected. Alex emerged wearing a navy blue suit that complemented his eyes. Elegant but understated. "You clean up nice, Mr. Thompson," he said, taking Jason's offered arm. "You look beautiful, Alex," Jason replied softly. "Though you always do." The gala was held at the Four Seasons downtown. As they entered the grand ballroom with its crystal chandeliers and marble floors, Jason noticed how some people did double takes, not at him, but at Alex. Whispers followed them, but Alex seemed oblivious, focused entirely on him. They danced to songs that reminded them both of simpler times, laughing when they missed steps. During a slow song, as Jason held him close, Alex spoke softly against his shoulder. There's something I should tell you, Jason, about who I am. I know who you are, Jason said simply. You're the man who stays 3 hours past his shift to hold a dying patient's hand, who learns the names of every person in this hospital, who sees people, not positions. That's not what I mean, Tuck, Alex said, pulling back to look at him. My father is Richard Grace. Jason recognized the name immediately. Richard Grace, CEO of Grace Medical Industries, one of the largest medical supply companies in the country, the company that donated millions to Mercy General, the company whose name was on the new cardiac wing. Why didn't you tell anyone, he asked after a moment. Because I wanted to be seen for my work, not my last name. I became a nurse against my father's wishes. He wanted me in the boardroom, but I wanted to be where I could make a real difference. Alex studied Jason's face. Does it change things between us? Jason was quiet, processing this revelation. Then he smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes and made them crinkle at the corners. The only thing that changes is now I understand why you always look a little sad when the people talk about struggling with money. You feel guilty for having what others need. Alex's eyes glistened. Most people either want me for my connections or resent me for my privilege. I want you for your terrible dancing and your habit of stealing my coffee during break, Jason said, making Alex laugh through his tears. And Alex, you should know something too. I'm not going to be a janitor forever. I'm 2 years away from my engineering degree. I've seen your textbooks in your locker, Alex admitted. Advanced thermodynamics isn't exactly light reading. As they swayed beneath the chandelier light, Jason realized something profound. Sometimes the most significant boundaries aren't the ones society creates, but the walls we build inside ourselves, fearing rejection for who we truly are. Their perfect evening shattered with the arrival of Richard Grace. Tall and imposing in an immaculate suit, he cut through the crowd like a shark through shallow water. Eyes darted toward him, conversations halted, and Alex tensed in Jason's arms. Alexander. Richard's voice carried the weight of authority that needed no volume. A word, please. Jason felt Alex's hand tighten around his. Actually, Father, I'm in the middle of a dance with my date. Richard's gaze fell on Jason, scanning him from head to toe. I see, perhaps both of you can join me then. Privately. They followed Richard to a secluded corner of the ballroom, away from curious eyes, but still within view of the party. The music continued, but for Jason, all he could hear was the pounding of his heart. What exactly do you think you're doing? Richard asked, his voice controlled but sharp. Bringing a maintenance worker to a fundraiser with our most important donors. His name is Jason, Alex said firmly, and he's my date. Is this some kind of rebellion? First becoming a nurse when you could have been running the company, and now this, Richard gestured toward Jason as if he were an inconvenient piece of furniture. Jason stood straight, military training evident in his posture. Sir, with all due respect, I care about your son for who he is, not for your family name or money. Richard's laugh was cold. How noble. Tell me, Mr. Thompson, Jason Thompson, Mr. Thompson, what would you say if I offered you $50,000 to walk away right now and never speak to my son again? The room seemed to go silent, though the music still played. Alex's face drained of color. Father, you can't be serious. I'm always serious when it comes to opportunists targeting my family. Richard replied, not taking his eyes off Jason. Jason felt a familiar heat rise in his chest, the same fire that had burned when his father had called him a disgrace, when his commanding officer had suggested he keep certain things private. He'd spent too long being quiet, too long accepting others' judgments. Mr. Grace, I understand you're protective of your son, Jason said, his voice steady despite the anger coursing through him. But I'm not here for your money. I'm here because your son is the most compassionate, genuine person I've ever met. And if you knew him, really knew him, you'd be proud instead of treating him like an asset to be managed. Richard's expression hardened. You'll regret this insolence. Both of you. He turned to Alex. If you continue this, whatever this is, don't expect your trust fund to bail you out. It's time you learned actions have consequences. After Richard stormed away, Alex stood frozen, his hand still gripping Jason's. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I should have warned you. About what? That your father is as warm as a Boston winter. Jason tried to smile, but saw the real pain in Alex's eyes. Hey, look at me. I've survived worse than disapproving parents. The question is, are you okay? Alex looked across the ballroom room, where his father was now speaking with hospital board members, occasionally glancing their way. I've spent my whole life trying to earn his approval while simultaneously rebelling against his control. But tonight, he looked back at Jason. Tonight, I'm choosing what I want. They left the gala early, walking along the harbor with loosened ties and heavy hearts. But when Alex slipped his hand into Jason's as they watched the lights shimmer across the water, Jason realized that sometimes walking away from security toward uncertainty is the bravest form of freedom. The weeks following the gala brought storms of their own. Alex returned to his apartment to find his credit cards canceled and his trust fund frozen. Meanwhile, Jason faced whispers and suspicious glances at work as word spread that he was targeting the Grace heir. You don't have to go through this, Jason said one evening as they sat in his small apartment, sharing takeout Chinese food because it was all he could afford. You could just tell your father you've come to your senses. Alex looked up from his noodles. Is that what you want? I want you to be happy. Jason replied honestly. Even if that means not being with me. I've spent 28 years trying to be what everyone else wanted, Alex said, setting down his chopsticks. With you, I'm just me, not the Grace heir, not the nurse everyone expects to eventually become an administrator. Just Alex. He reached across the table for Jason's hand. For the first time, I feel like I'm making choices, not just reactions. Alex moved into a modest apartment in Fenway, taking extra shifts to cover rent. He stopped hiding his relationship with Jason at work, and though some colleagues treated him differently, others showed unexpected support. Dr. Rivera, the chief of emergency medicine, pulled Alex aside one day and simply said, "Your father used to try to bully me too. Stand your ground." Jason doubled his hours at school, pushing to finish his degree faster. Between work, classes, and study sessions that often stretched until dawn, he was exhausted but determined. Alex would sometimes find him asleep among textbooks, equations scrawled on notepads around him. Spring arrived in Boston, bringing with it the Pride Parade. They debated attending. Both still carried wounds from rejection, but ultimately decided that hiding would only give power to those who wanted them to be invisible. The parade route wound through downtown, a river of rainbow flags and music. Jason and Alex walked hand in hand, surprised by how natural it felt to be surrounded by a community that celebrated rather than judged them. Halfway through the route, Jason spotted a group of veterans marching with a banner reading "Serve with Pride," and something inside him healed a little. "I want you to meet someone," Alex said suddenly, pulling Jason toward the sidewalk where an elegant older woman stood watching the parade. Her silver hair was swept into a perfect updo, but her smile was warm when she saw them approaching. "Mom," Alex embraced her. "This is Jason, the engineer who stole my son's heart," she said, taking Jason's hands in hers. "I've heard so much about you." "Mrs. Grace," Jason began, uncertain. "Please call me Catherine. And don't worry, my husband and I haven't shared the same views in many years, which is why we rarely share the same house anymore." She squeezed his hands. "Anyone who encourages Alex to be his authentic self is family to me." Later that evening, as they walked along the Charles River beneath a sky painted with sunset, Alex stopped and turned to Jason. "I've been thinking," he said. "My father threatened to take away my inheritance to control me, but he can't take away what really matters, the choices I make, the work I do, the people I love." He looked into Jason's eyes. "And I love you, Jason Thompson, not because you rescued me from a privileged life, but because you showed me what real strength looks like." Jason felt the words echo in his chest, words he hadn't heard since before his parents shut their door on him. "I love you too," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "More than I ever thought possible." As summer deepened in Boston, their lives fell into a new rhythm, one built on shared struggles and mutual respect rather than convenience or expectation. And in that honest space, both men discovered that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply choosing to build something real in a world that prefers the easy facades. A year passed, then two. Jason graduated with honors, his engineering degree specializing in medical device design. Alex stood in the audience beside Catherine Grace, cheering louder than anyone when Jason crossed the stage. Though Richard Grace's absence was noticeable, it no longer cast the shadow it once had. Jason secured a position at a progressive medical technology firm in Cambridge, where his designs for affordable prosthetics quickly garnered attention. Alex continued nursing, but also started a program at Mercy General for LGBTQ+ youth facing healthcare discrimination. Together, they moved into an apartment overlooking Boston Harbor, where morning light spilled through windows that faced east toward new beginnings. The call from Richard Grace came on a rainy Tuesday in October. Alex answered, his face growing serious as he listened. After hanging up, he turned to Jason. "My father wants to meet with us, both of us." They arrived at Grace Medical Industries' gleaming headquarters the following day. Richard waited in his corner office, looking older than Jason remembered. The harsh edges of his expression softened by something that might have been regret. "I've been watching your work," Richard said to Jason without preamble. "Your prosthetics designs are impressive, innovative, accessible." He cleared his throat. "They're exactly the kind of project Grace Medical should be backing." Alex tensed beside Jason. "Is this a business meeting, Father?" Richard rose from his desk and walked to the window overlooking the city. "2 years ago, I thought I was protecting you from making a mistake." He turned back to face them. "Instead, I nearly lost you completely. Your mother helped me see that." He extended a hand toward Jason. "I can't change the past, but I would like to offer both of you a partnership, a foundation focused on medical access for underserved communities, particularly veterans and LGBTQ+ individuals. Full creative control, full funding." That June, as the Supreme Court announced the nationwide legalization of same-sex marriage, Jason and Alex stood together on Boston Common among thousands celebrating. The following month, they married in the small chapel at Mercy General, where they had first met. Catherine sat in the front row, and beside her, to everyone's surprise, sat Richard Grace, who stood when it came time to give his blessing. 5 years later, at their Cape Cod beach house during a Thanksgiving gathering, Jason watched Alex laugh with his parents on the deck overlooking the ocean. Their foundation had helped thousands. Their marriage had weathered storms, and the walls that once separated their worlds had long since crumbled. Sometimes the greatest treasures come disguised in unexpected places. A hospital break room, an estranged family, a moment of courage when asking someone to dance. What moments in your life seemed ordinary but ultimately changed everything? We'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Subscribe to Heart Stories for more tales of courage, connection, and love that transcends boundaries.